Sabalenka overcomes sloppy start to down French wildcard in Melbourne opener. Aryna Sabalenka warned she was only going to get better as the top seed recovered from a slow start to launch her Australian Open with a straight sets win on Sunday. The world number 1 tamed French wildcard Tyansoa Rakitomanga Rajana 6-4, 6-1 as she bids to claim a third Melbourne crown in 4 years. The Belarusian faces Chinese qualifier Bai Zhuoxuan next, after she stunned Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova of Russia. Sabalenka, who lost last year's final, said that the first match of a Grand Slam was always tricky, especially against an opponent she had never played before. Sabalenka has been trying to expand her game, including going to the net more often, and said the variation made her a better player. "I was definitely working on serve and volley. I'm super happy to be able to do it in the match," she said. "You know, on the practice court is one thing, but to be able to be kind of fearless and go there at the match is something else. I'm really proud I'm able to show this tennis." The 27-year-old, fresh from winning the season-opening Brisbane International, made a sloppy start in losing the first 3 points of the match when serving. In front of the watching Roger Federer, Sabalenka clawed back to deuce but then misfired again to fall a game down in front of a shocked Rod Laver Arena. Sabalenka, who is the favorite to add a 5th Grand Slam title to her career haul, pulled back level, but if she expected the spirited world number 118 to melt away, it did not immediately happen. The reigning US Open champion offered an apology to her underdog opponent at 4-4 when she unleashed a forehand into the 20-year-old's head. Sabalenka's error count was rising, but she finally broke Rakitomanga Rajana's resistance to claim the first set, then eased home in the second. "I was super happy I found my level," said Sabalenka, who was guilty of 13 unforced errors in the first set. "It is always tricky playing someone young, someone you don't know, and a left-hander." Sabalenka said she had felt pressure with Federer and Rod Laver watching courtside. "I hope you guys enjoyed watching me play. I hope you enjoyed it even a little bit," she said in her on-court interview. "Can I take a picture with you, please?" Sabalenka was stunned in the Melbourne final by Madison Keys of the United States a year ago. The Melbourne night did not greet Aryna Sabalenka with immediate obedience. The lights blazed, the court shimmered, and the crowd buzzed with the kind of restless anticipation reserved for champions. Yet for all her status and seeding, Sabalenka stepped onto Rod Laver Arena carrying something heavier than expectation: the quiet pressure of beginnings. Openers, after all, have a habit of exposing nerves no trophy can silence. Across the net stood a French wild card, buoyed by nothing to lose and everything to gain. Her strokes were free, her movement sharp, and her belief dangerous. From the very first rally, it was clear this would not be the routine procession many had assumed. Sabalenka's opening service game wobbled. A forehand sailed long. A double fault followed. The crowd murmured, sensing vulnerability. Sloppiness crept into Sabalenka's game like an uninvited guest. Timing faltered, feet arrived late, and her usually thunderous ground strokes landed without conviction. The Frenchwoman fed off it, redirecting pace, asking questions, and answering them herself with fearless precision. Melbourne loves a story, and for a brief moment, the underdog's script seemed to be writing itself. But champions are not defined by flawless starts. They are revealed in discomfort. Sabalenka paused between points, eyes fixed on the strings of her racket as if searching for a conversation only she could hear. The fire was still there, banked but unextinguished. She began to slow the chaos, breathing deeper, bouncing the ball longer before serves. The power did not disappear, it waited. The French wild card surged ahead, emboldened by the world number 1's uncertainty. She chased down balls others would abandon, painting lines with audacious accuracy. The crowd responded, clapping louder, leaning forward. Sabalenka, meanwhile, absorbed the noise like static, refusing to let it dictate her next move. Then, almost imperceptibly, the match shifted. A return cracked down the line. A roar followed. Sabalenka's shoulders straightened. Her footwork sharpened, and the forehand, once unruly, began to obey again. What had looked rushed now appeared deliberate. She started stepping into the court, cutting off angles, imposing her presence not just with power but with intent. The French wildcard felt it first in the rallies. Balls that once came back with manageable pace now bit harder, skidding through the court. The margin for error shrank. Where freedom had lived, caution crept in. And caution, against Sabalenka, is a dangerous companion. Still, the wildcard fought. She held her nerve, saved break points, and tested Sabalenka's patience. Each game became a small battle, each rally a negotiation between belief and inevitability. Sabalenka's frustration flared at times, a clenched fist here, a sharp glance at her box there. But she no longer looked lost. She looked engaged. The sloppy start had not vanished, it had been confronted. When Sabalenka finally wrestled control of the set, it felt less like a victory and more like a declaration. She did not celebrate wildly. Instead, she nodded to herself, as if acknowledging an internal agreement fulfilled. The crowd, sensing the momentum swing, rallied behind her with renewed enthusiasm. The second act unfolded with a different rhythm. Sabalenka served with authority, her first serve finding corners, her second no longer betraying her. The forehand became a weapon again, heavy and unforgiving. Points shortened. The French wildcard, still brave, now found herself reacting rather than dictating. Yet even in command, Sabalenka did not coast. She pressed, aware of how fragile early dominance can be. Melbourne has seen favorites unravel before. She chased every ball, growled through exertion, and refused to gift her opponent hope. The sloppiness that once defined the opening games was replaced by a focused aggression, honed and purposeful. The wildcard earned applause in defeat long before the final point. She had asked real questions, forced the champion to dig, and for a time, made the impossible feel plausible. But tennis, in its honesty, eventually reveals the difference between promise and presence. On match point, Sabalenka did not hesitate. A serve out wide, a forehand into open space, and it was done. She raised her arms, not in triumph alone, but in relief. The opener was behind her. The test had been passed. As she walked to the net, Sabalenka smiled, exchanging words with her opponent, respect evident in her expression. The handshake carried an unspoken truth. Tonight was not about perfection. It was about resilience. Melbourne applauded as Sabalenka left the court, her path forward intact. The sloppy start would be forgotten by some, overanalyzed by others. But for those who watched closely, it told a deeper story. It reminded us that greatness is not immune to struggle, and that even the most powerful players must sometimes wrestle with their own imperfections before asserting control.